you're gonna call me a curmudgeon. You're gonna call me a cruel, a heartless guy. You're gonna think that I don't like kids, and I don't understand their plight. But this story here, I'm gonna share it right here. It is from this came out in VPAP's morning newsletter this morning. This is UR Capital News, reported from the University of Richmond. And the headline here: high school senior urges lawmakers to protect students from unpaid meal debt penalties. So a high school senior traded his classroom seat for a spot before state legislators Wednesday morning and urged urged members of the General Assembly State Education Committee to move forward with legislation aimed at protecting public school students from penalties tied to unpaid school debt. Barrett Kendig, a student at Mountain View High School in Stafford County, spoke in support of SB 42, which would require public school boards to shield students from punitive actions over unpaid meal balances. The bill would also require public school divisions to use non-federal funds to cover any uncollectible school meal debt remaining at the end of each school year. So call me crazy, but food costs, right? Meals costs, school lunch costs. And there are some parents, I'm one of them, who choose not to pay for school lunch. I wake up every morning, I pack a boxed lunch, I try to make it as nutritious as possible, and I put it in my kids' backpack, and they go off to school and they have packed lunch. They've come home several times. Hey, can I get school lunch? I want to try the pizza or this, that, and the other, and maybe someday we will. But for now, we do that. But things cost, and when you don't instill that fact that things cost money and again, free lunch, nothing's free. What are we teaching the kids here?
Yeah, you're right. Why do you hate kids? That's what I always used to hear. That was Court Sterling's line whenever you would say anything against school funding or whatever. But yeah, it's more dumb policy. The argument, just to get it out there, is that that school breakfast now and lunches are the only place that these kids will get a good meal or a meal. In other words, the supposition is that the parents aren't going to feed them. If you don't feed them in school, they're not getting fed. And that may be true in a small percentage of cases, but what we know about social welfare programs is as soon as you offer the free food or the possibly free food, you end up with a lot of people that they opt they take the free instead of doing it themselves like you do, or paying for it out of their own pocket. So you create more dependency, and to try to help a few people. This is not the place. School is not the place. School budgets are not the place, in my opinion, to be administering this type of a social welfare program. If we have kids that can't afford, whose parents aren't feeding them, we should deal with it a different way, because this has gotten out of control. In Stafford, it's the cost has become crazy in the school, and again, the affordability in Stafford is really not doing well, and the cost of living here, because of the government expense of the government taxation, is growing faster than anywhere I've seen. And I mean that. I'd challenge someone to tell me where overall taxes have gone up more in the last 4 years under Democrat leadership now than Stafford County.
And there's also the fact that it's become sort of a notch in your political belt to say, hey, we have X amount of kids on free and reduced lunch, and we're feeding them free lunch. And many politicians that we have seen run on this celebrate that fact, because they have a lot of essentially poor kids on free lunch, and that's something that they tout and they're proud of.
Yeah, of course, like a lot of other things bad policy we've gone through in this last conversation. But again, I'm not saying that some kids don't need help with this type of thing. I just don't think the school budget is the place for it. It should be administered somehow another way, where you're a little more careful about who you're offering taxpayer dollars to. That's just smart business.
I mean, do you think it should be, it's kind of like, and this kind of takes me back to when Obamacare was being put through and passed. It's like, have a pot of money for the people who don't have healthcare or don't have it or won't have it, won't buy it, right? For
Don't want
whatever
it.
reason.
Yeah. Don't
Don't
want it.
want it, right? And put money aside for those people, but yet don't make everybody else upend what they're doing, their way of doing business to fit the needs of everyone, right? Do you think there's a way to do that? I mean, if you were in the General Assembly, I mean, we see a lot of these bills go through, and then they're always, how can we buy lunch for everybody? How can we provide free lunch for everybody? Because I mean, that seems to be the goal. How would
Sure.
you do it if you were in there?
Well, yeah, of course, the answer is yes. Of course, there's a way. It's just like work requirements, right? That's a way for welfare programs. That's a way to limit the amount of exposure the taxpayer has. How I would do it, again, would be you would have to apply for and be approved to get free taxpayers' dollars. But this type of feel good free stuff, that's signature Democrat stuff that's what they do. That's what works for them. And if it's feel good, right? Oh my God, you don't want these kids to eat, Uriah? I mean, again, what do you have against children? Wow, you can afford to feed your kids. Maybe this person can't. That's a serious accusation that people will make, and it's on its face like that's something to really consider. But again, the cost matters. Who's paying for it? And then, of course, there's always a tipping point where you become a community where you can't afford it anymore. That happens all the time, all over the place. The federal government bails out whole states who have all of the time who just couldn't afford all of their free stuff anymore that they've been giving away. Always Democrat controlled states.
Well, I'll wrap this one by saying there was one day where I sent my kid in with a packed lunch, and for whatever reason she forgot it was in her bag, and she went and didn't have her lunch with her in the cafeteria. So they gave her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and maybe a banana. It was just something, and it takes me back. I mean, we had that too, right? If you forgot your lunch, they would always give you, like, they would feed you, right? The schools they don't want any kids hungry, so they will feed you. But as soon as she came home, we got a call from the school saying, "Hey, you owe us $2.13, or whatever whatever the amount was."
Right.
And we paid it, right? Nothing's free, and so I don't know. So, what do you think? Am I heartless? Am I cruel? Let me know. Tell me in the comments. Do you think that the state should be paying for meals for every kid in every school across the Commonwealth, or do you think parents should step up and be responsible for their children, either pay their bill, pay the lunch bill, or find an alternative way to feed them, pack a lunch, but buy, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend getting takeout every night and bagging up, but however it is you do it, or as Paul, is what you said, put away a fund, apply for that fund, give it to the people who really do need it, and make it available. Let me know in the comments. What do you think, and what's the solution to this issue? Because we have to question teaching children that there's something, such thing as a free lunch. Once they get in the real world, they're going to quickly learn that's not true. That's my lived experience, if you want, and everybody likes that term, lived experience. So there you go.